Okay, so like we said, welcome once again. Anyone who's been to one of these before will have seen this slide. We are here, of course, to help and support practitioners that's in your region through partnership working, looking at leadership and supporting the STEM strategy actions. So just a wee reminder for those who are just joining us, if you would just make sure that your microphone is popped off and that your camera is off as well, just so we avoid any kind of background noise and what have you. There will be a chance, hopefully, at the end for folk to switch the mics on and have a chat and, you know, share some ideas, thoughts, if you have any questions about anything that's come up. So I'm Jane Hamilton. It's lovely to welcome some of you back. Some of you really want to thank you for all the support that you've given us over the series. I really do hope that this one will once again provide you with a food for thought and hopefully start making some of those connections between the science qualifications we offer in schools and then the positive destinations that our young people can then head on to. This afternoon, once again, we're here to inform and support our colleagues and highlight the support that's available and provide some opportunities for collaboration as well. So I'm just here to say hello. Thankfully, you're not hearing that much from me this afternoon. We are joined by Klaus is here to tell us a wee bit about DYW and the links to science. Also really pleased that Donnie Wood from the Scottish Certification and Qualifications Framework has been able to join us this afternoon too. We've also got joined by Dr. Catherine Isherwood from RSK, and she's going to share a wee bit about her role within RSK and a wee bit about skills and things like that they're looking for in the young scientists coming up and out through schools as well. Unfortunately, our colleague from Lateral DX has been called away to another meeting and he won't be able to join us this afternoon. And Sarah Smith sadly had a family emergency and won't be able to join us. But I can still share the information about healthcare science with regards to that because it ties in, and it's one of these ones that ties in so much with what we've been talking about over the last few months with regards to skills for work and lab skills and scientific. It would be a shame not to share that information with you. And at the end, would also like to open it up for questions and your reflections as well. You know, because as we're going through this, it's a case of, well, yeah, I actually, you know what, I'm quite familiar with all this, Jane. However, would you be able to develop this a bit more? Because I'm really interested in looking into this aspect and so on. So once again, it's an opportunity to have your voice heard and shape the way that we deliver our webinars work. Okay, so before I hand over to over the last few months, we have looked at how we can build a science curriculum that can support our young people into a wider range of positive destinations within the sciences. And this session is here to kind of bring together some of those different strands that can contribute to those destinations. We want to think about potentially breaking down some of the biases that, you know, science is only for your high flyers. You know, you have to go to university. It's that kind of traditional school, university, employment, that kind of pathway, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the pathway, and that pathway might not suit a lot of the young people that we work with at this point in time. We want to make sciences more accessible to more young people because there are so many roles within employment that our young people can go into, and we want to provide you with the insight and basically signpost to some of the places you can go for additional support whenever it comes to directing our young people on whatever pathway they choose to go. So, like I said, making science more accessible. We've already had discussions about introducing lab skills, looking at national progression awards, alternative national certificates, like the likes of your practical electronics and so on, and how we can support our young people in schools. That is enough from me for now. I'm going to hand over to Klaus, who is going to share a little bit from a DYW perspective. So Klaus, over to you. Thank you very much.
Great. Is there a chance of sharing the slides with the rest of the group, or is it just me who doesn't see them at the moment? Okay,
Sorry, Klaus, we can see them. Jane, you're still on mute.
Okay.
Sorry, I was asking Ian, can you see the slides?
Hold on a second. I see the slides sitting up on top. I don't know what's happened there, but yeah, I can see them now as well. Brilliant. Okay, folks, thanks very much for giving me the chance to speak here to you about DYW, and this is going to be an absolute whistle stop through DYW. But importantly, first of all, is to realize that DYW is not a bit separate from the curriculum. It's actually sitting central within it, you know, there are various bits and pieces that correlate. So, for example, the National Improvement Framework that looks at positive destinations, or Attainment Indeed, which has just been refreshed as well. And there are things like the Career Education Standard, which we base all our thinking on. So if you haven't come across these, then it's worthwhile having a look. But central actually is the curriculum, isn't it? And the 4 capacities, so successful learners, confident individuals, and so on. So the skills side of it, as well as the 4 contexts of learning, which are at the bottom there, the opportunities for personal achievement, interdisciplinary learning, the ethos and life of the school as a community, and the curriculum areas and subjects. So all of that is the Scottish curriculum. DYW fits really nicely into this, and I just want you to think about the world of work that some of you are coming from and how that correlates into all of these areas. And I think you can see very quickly where the connections are. The next slide is really just an aspect around the emerging drivers at the moment. And again, nothing new to you. Okay, so we've got global economic developments that are rapidly progressing. We've got the context of COVID. We've got a skills gap somehow in Scotland, arguably. There are things like Brexit and possibly a referendum too, and youth unemployment. So DYW operates in that because we need to respond to any of these challenges for young people. And again, please think very differently from the way you're used to in your compartments possibly, and think, what's education for? If it's not about preparing young people for their future pathways, then, you know, we are majorly out of kilter, I think, what the experiences in the world of work represents and the challenges. More in the centre there, you see the drivers around education just now. We just had the Foundation Apprenticeship Review. We have the Young Person's Guarantee. We have the SAC and the NIF, the Scottish Attainment Challenge in its next iterations, and the NIF, as I just mentioned, and the OECD report, and so on. There's various different key drivers, and all of them sort of spin around the DYW agenda, the Developing the Young Workforce agenda. So that's where we sit at the moment. So it's very much, Developing the Young is very much a key entity of what we do in education. So the next slide highlights an example of what we are trying to achieve collectively through the curriculum. And I think it's important that we do take account of what young people want. So here is a graphics and the schematics, a very brief overview of the challenges and the ambitions around curriculum, right? So if you think about the starting point as a collection of what learners or the 16+ data hub or industry is telling us, how do we feed that together and analyze that to inform the curriculum, right? In order to make sure that young people find the right trajectories and pathways in lives. And all of that is meant to inform the curriculum and is then taking account of what we offer. I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense from an industry point of view to look at the demands and the drivers, and then help to realize that in the learning and teaching. So the next slide is a couple of examples of what that may well look like, and I've used here one from a primary school. So this is about, you know, how we can instill skills and technology into a curriculum from early on. This is a primary school that implemented an academy program twice a week, and all young learners were going through these 5 different areas according to interest and ability, not necessarily age. That's an interesting concept, but you can see here how design, manufacturing, food technology, creativity, how meta skills and industry is interplayed nicely in that school, and how this becomes a natural way of developing the curiosity, the learning, and so on. So the next slide is is an example, and this is about qualifications, isn't it, today? And you're focusing on thinking, what could possibly be offered, and here is just one slide that gives a sort of a hint, a nod towards the other bits and pieces that we need to look at in the curriculum. And Donnie is going to describe the sort of scale of qualifications that are actually out there that we can happily harness in order to drive the curriculum inspirations for young people that I was talking about earlier on. So, there's a raft of NPAs. I don't even know, I didn't even want to count them, but there are literally hundreds of other qualifications apart from nationals and highest that we could tap into in order to provide young people with the right qualifications for their aspirations and their pathways. And that, of course, interplays with the skills agenda. And you see on the right-hand side of that slide, in the middle, there are the meta skills. These are taken from the meta skills. And I think it's that interplay, isn't it, between the qualification, what drives young people, what industry, and the skills that we deduce from that and learn from that within for young people. So curiosity, creativity, sense-making, critical thinking, all of them are sort of part of that wider curriculum area focus, isn't it? So in other words, what I'm saying is we can make this really rich collectively and already have a focus on young people's pathways in the future. That's our challenge at the moment at DYW. The next slide shows you a secondary, well, this is actually something around attainment. I've just put that in to highlight the benefits for schools and learners in terms of inside tariff points and credit scores, because Donnie will refer to that. And you can see here that, for example, an engineering qualification comes out as an equivalent of actually in terms of credit points of 2 higher. So you've got here quite a strong way of saying, folks, this actually is a benefit to everyone. So I've just used that as an example. Of course, there are challenges around it. I'm fully aware of it, but let's just hold on to that. There are not just from an insight or from an attainment point of view, it's not just the nationals and the highest. We can harness this quite differently as well with great benefits. So the next one, I think, is my second last slide, and I'm conscious of the time. I've been given 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes, and I'm trying to stick to this. Here is an example of what a curriculum may well look like, and this has actually been implemented in Grove, and Andy Kramer is now working for Education Scotland. We had a conversation about this. Quite a challenge, but just not going through it, but just look at it, right? Look at, for example, construction engineering, what you could do right from S1 into the senior phase. And you can see how this is very nicely mapped out for young people in a school, systematically thinking about the opportunities, the pathways, the futures, the employment, and their interest. Go right to the bottom, for example, there are personal and wider achievement elements, Salter Awards, what drives us, bikeability, youth awards. So you can see this kaleidoscope of learning and accreditation and attainment that we can construct when we have an open mind about all these things. Now, the reason I'm talking to you about this, we are in a forum where we want to discuss qualifications, but pathways as well, and we want to look at it from an industry point of view, from an education point of view, and somehow in the middle come up with something that really has merit for everyone involved. That's where this is just an illustration. Let's just call it School X, and of course no school in Scotland, no secondary school in Scotland will be the same. It's all context driven, so whether you have a barista training available in your school depends entirely on your context. I think that's my last slide as far as I know. No, oh yes, there's DYW Live. I couldn't let you away, was just doing a little plug for a program that may help you all. DYW Live, you've come across this, no doubt. Just to say that about 85% of the sessions on that program are actually STEM related. So we are offering a huge amount. What's great is, from an educator's perspective, you don't have to do anything except for log in. If you're an employer, you can come in, we provide the platform, and you can actually provide some national inspiration for young people. So I'm just plugging this. We've had quite a success over the last year with that. So hugely exciting developments. And the second slide, the next slide, I think is just highlighting qualifications we are now offering on DYW Live as well. And I want to highlight the one on the right-hand side, which is the CSCS card on construction. So we are back in the STEM territory here. We are offering this currently out to roughly about, I think, 220 schools signed up. Don't quote me on that. But we are actually reckoning between the two qualifications on DYW Live, we will reach approximately 20,000 kids, but let's not number crunch, right? But we actually had huge interest on the two qualifications. So in other words, DYW Live is now going into that area, and we're realizing that it actually pays benefits for schools and for the learners. I think that's me. I don't know if I managed in 7.5 minutes, but I'm happy.
You did that. You've done really well, Klaus. I'm very impressed. It really was a whistle-stop tour through all things DYW. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. And this is the thing, folks. You know, in a previous role, I was PT DYW, and as well as still teaching science. And it was one of those things where it's inextricably linked. You know, you can't not talk about the world of work whenever you're a science teacher, because it's the kids always like, well, what's the point in doing this? And you're like, well, actually, we're doing this because you could do this in this job or do this in this job, where you have the wee inserts from my world of work coming into your lessons and things like that. And if we can make those connections so the young people can see the relevance of what they're doing within the classroom, it makes the next, like, choosing subjects and that kind of progression a lot more straightforward for them. And having those kind of career conversations within the classroom and with parents at parents' evenings and any opportunity, essentially, it helps them make the connections, you know, so they can see that, you know, a science career, of course you could have a science career, because if you do this, this and this is what you could end up doing as well. So thank you so much, Klaus, for that input. And Klaus is going to be hanging about as well. So at the end, if you have any DYW questions, Klaus will be here, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer those. So thank you once again for that. So our next speaker, I'm going to hand over now to Donnie from the SCQF Partnership. Donnie, over to you.
Thanks, Jade, and that was great, Klaus. Always great to hear your input there on DYW. And I like to think we work really closely together, and everything that we do is trying to support the DYW strategy going forward too. So lots of ways that will link, and we'll maybe tap into that a little bit in my slot as well. So I'll keep everything brief and short and sharp too. But I thought a good place to start is usually with the framework itself, and you'll all be familiar with the qualifications framework itself. But I thought a really good quick time to give an update on some news around about what we're doing, how we can support schools, promoting the range of programmes on the SCQF, and I'll go into a bit more detail about National Progression Awards and different opportunities that's within the curriculum that supports science, technology, and particularly DYW as well. And part of that is around about highlighting the parity of esteem around different qualifications. So how do these different qualifications compare to nationals, hires, and some of the ones that are more familiar? So as I said, a good place to start is always with the framework, and you can see how we've laid it out really simply. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but I think it's a tremendous tool for learners to be able to use to begin to map out their own pathways and own learner journeys. How are they going to progress? Where do they want to get to, and what opportunities are there for them to go, whether that's apprenticeships, National Progression Awards, going to college, do NCs, HNC and HND. From there you can go to university. There's so many different pathways. And one of the great things about SCQF is trying to highlight those to young people and getting them to take ownership about their own pathways as well. I mentioned before about the parity of esteem, and you can just see there, I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but at level 7, you've got a variety of different qualifications that sit at level 7. So you've got advanced hires, but you've also got HNCs, you've got first year university, which is Certificate of Higher Education. but also modern apprenticeships and some SVQs sit at level 7 as well. So when parents and young people see this, they can see that parity of esteem between different qualifications. So one's no better than the other. They all sit at the same level, and they can all take you where you want to get to. And in the next slide, I'll just give you a little bit more details in numbers around about the database and some of the things that we're doing as well. So we've actually got over 11,700 qualifications that sit in our framework. And if you break it down a little bit, and this is what I do with schools and when I support them, there's 55 national 5s. But if you start to look at levels and change that conversation, there's over 600 qualifications at level 5. And similarly at level 6 as well in terms of hires and level 6 awards. So part of our programme with schools is to round about shaping that conversation and shifting that emphasis from a qualification title to thinking more about SCQF levels. And when you add up all the national higher and advanced higher qualifications from SQA, it's less than 10% just of their catalogue. So huge scope for different qualifications, even within SQA. And that's not even including all the other qualifications that sit on our database too. I've mentioned our school ambassador programme too. We've got 162 schools across 31 local authorities, which is brilliant, but we're not even halfway through reaching all the schools. So we've got a lot of work to do still. And essentially that programme is around about training up schools and staff to be able to recruit young people to be pupil ambassadors. And their remit from there is to engage parents, engage their peers, highlighting what the SCQF is and how they can use that to develop their own pathways. So some tremendous work going on, and I'll identify some of the resources we've got as well. You might have heard this before, but 93% of programmes that sit at level 6 aren't hires. And again, it just reinforces that shift in conversation that we're trying to do. And in the next slide, we'll go into a little bit more detail about some of the resources that we've got as well. So we've developed pupil resources, parent resources, and also an old versus new timeline that is a map of qualifications from the 1960s until present day. And it's really good for parents and businesses to be able to see, well, how does a National 5 compare to a standard grade or no grade? And it gives them that opportunity to put it into their own context as well. We're working hard just now to introduce a new versus old. And it's going to include the likes of apprenticeships, NPAs and things like that. So it's going to be more updated and parents can be more familiar with different types of qualifications that are on the SCQF too. And then last couple of slides, just carrying on with the resources, we've created a school ambassadors Padlet where we've added on lots of our own resources, but also shared some videos, some links, some of the DYW information from Klaus is on there too, information from the awards network, different types of qualifications that sit in the SCQF. But in addition to that, we've put on there videos from schools, case studies and blogs around about what schools are doing to highlight SCQF and some of the great work going on. And lastly, as part of the Padlet as well, we've introduced, we've uploaded some documents from the SQA, where pre-pandemic we had worked quite closely together to map out some different areas, and science is one of them as well. So click onto the Padlet and have a look. I'll pop the link in the chat in a minute. So lots of good resources, and you can get in touch with me if you want to find out a bit more. And then just to finish off, we launched our new recognition programme just at the end of last year, aimed at, well, for two reasons really. We wanted to gain information about what's happening in schools, all that great work, and try and capture that. But we also wanted to showcase some of the great work going on in schools as well, and actually promote that. So by doing this and highlighting different areas and criteria that schools can work towards, they submit evidence and they can get a bronze, silver and gold status from SCQF, which is great. So we've got 2 gold schools, we've got about 4 silver and about 25 bronzes. So it's something we're really trying to push, and it's been really good for schools to be able to put it into their development plans and improvement plans over a 2-3 year period. But just to finish off, always keen to have conversations with schools, keen to support as much as possible. Feel free to get in touch, follow me on Twitter, and I'll post a link to the Padlet, and feel free to share it and find out a bit more about what's going on in terms of SCQF.
Thank you so much, Donny. And once again, Donny had come out to school to my school that I was working in as well, spoke to senior leaders, and it was one of the things that made, for me, the biggest difference whenever it came to talking to parents in particular, because a lot of them, like if you're, what it's like, folks, whenever you're at a parents' evening, like, what's that mean hen in old money, is that an O grade or and all this type of stuff, and you're trying to kind of, show them the equivalent, if you're trying to say, oh, I'd love, this your young person would be fantastic at doing level 5 lab skills. Oh, but what's that like? Or what about a foundation apprenticeship? Oh, what's that like? And you're just trying to kind of get that kind of common understanding, across parents, practitioners, and your pupils as well. So there's a whole range of people that really do benefit from this. And then having the young people as the ambassadors as well, and getting them trained up. So there you go, you're hitting leadership, you're improving their communication skills as well. So there's all these wonderful things that can link in really well with the SCQF partnership as well. So thank you to Donnie, who once again, like Klaus, is going to be hanging about as well and is more than happy to answer some questions, even the hard ones. Isn't that right, Donnie? Especially the hard questions.
Absolutely, yes. The harder the better.
Absolutely. Going to hand over now to Dr. Catherine Isherwood. So Catherine, I was delighted to meet Catherine a few weeks ago and find out a wee bit more about what her role is at RASK, and also just had a conversation, in and around what is it you want to see from young people, what is it you're looking for in your ideal employee, I suppose. And so just going to hand over to Catherine. I've got your slides ready for you. And thank you so much for joining us. It can't be easy coming into, I suppose, a virtual room full of teachers. But we're really, really pleased that you were able to join us. So thank you, Catherine.
Jane, and in terms of the virtual room full of teachers, it's no more scary than a virtual room full of any group of anybody anywhere. So it's nice to be here and nice to have the opportunity to talk to you all a little bit about what I do and what RSK does in general. RSK is a huge company. It employs well over 8,000 staff internationally. I work for one of the sub-companies, a company called WRC, and I'm based in their office in Stirling in Scotland. And I'm an environmental consultant. So my background is a geologist, and I did the traditional university route. But I've often thought we don't actually need to have graduates doing a lot of the work that we do. And so it does feel like a really good opportunity to get younger people for whom the sort of traditional education route isn't entirely what they're looking for. We send a lot of our young people out to do field work up and down the country, particularly looking at peat resources and peat condition. I actually have two of my team out on site at the moment in the Scottish borders. So we do a lot of survey work, and this can mean weeks at a time out in peat bogs up in Caithness or in Wales, or I've spent a lot of time up in Shetland in a previous job. So being reliable and comfortable working in an outdoor environment is very important. And also knowing what information you need to collect and how to record that and make sure that you're collecting the right data. So we do a lot of work for planning applications. Most of our work is before the planning submission stage. So we're collecting information about a particular site, whether it's for a wind farm or a road or a mine or a hydroelectric scheme or whatever, all sorts of different things. A lot of them require the same kind of information. So we have people going out to site to collect that data about the ground conditions and about the water environment. That's what my team specialises in. But we also work with people who look at the forestry conditions or at archaeology or at landscape and visual side of things. How far away can you see the wind turbines from, for example? And these are all very important skills. We also do quite a lot of work collecting data about ongoing site conditions. We work with a number of the housing developers where we go out to particular sites to collect water samples and to check that they're behaving themselves and not releasing sediment into watercourses to comply with their licenses from SEPA usually. And then all of these things get written up into reports. You can see on the right hand side of the slide there some examples of some of the reports that we produce with photographs and sketches and site notes, and also more sort of classic written work, which I haven't put on because it doesn't look so pretty. But a key part of what we do involves talking to people. whether it's in meetings like this, on Teams, which have become a lot more familiar over the last 2 years, or face-to-face meetings with clients, with regulators, with members of the public. They can often be very interesting and sometimes quite traumatic if people are very upset about something. So being able to be diplomatic can be a very valuable skill. So I've put together a selection of pictures of some of the team getting together. We've got there's a public consultation meeting, and one of my colleagues, Casey, is giving a presentation. The map in the middle, it looks a bit like a bruise. That's peat depth mapping, and the darker the colour, so the sort of more purple in the middle is very deep. In that particular site in Caithness, the peat got up to 8 metres. And you're also looking at watercourse crossing structures and trying to work out where particular infrastructure is going on the ground. So that's what the 2 images at the right are for. On to the next one, a little bit about what we're looking for from our recruits. For my team, really key skills are happy being outdoors, working in the outdoors, collecting data. It can be lovely, but it isn't necessarily. That photograph in the middle of the top there, that's me in the snow, and it was very cold. It can be glamorous, or it can be just paddling around in the mud on the housing estate development. So, you know, it's useful information, but you need to have people who are comfortable coping with whatever the situation is. So with that in mind, being able to navigate is very important, because whilst we do have GPS and field tablets that are GPS enabled, sometimes the technology lets us down, and being able to use map and compass is the most useful practical thing that I can think of for a lot of what we do. Working in poor weather, sometimes it rains, sometimes it snows, and you just have to get the work done. So being enthusiastic, somebody who's done Duke of Edinburgh Award or the John Muir Award, that kind of thing, are likely to be the sorts of people who will be interested in the kind of work we do. But also, for all I've been talking about the outdoor fieldwork side of things, it's very important that we have people who have good IT literacy, so who can write decent English, who can use Excel and make it do sums for them. You know, we can teach them a lot of the technical aspects of it, but if people come in with the basic literacy and numeracy skills that we can build on, that's very valuable. And of course, for things like this, being able to use PowerPoint, because that's often how we provide the information. I put GIS in there. I appreciate that's something that a lot of schools don't offer, and that's something we normally expect to teach people, but we do a lot of work using GIS as well. So that's very important. One of the key things that might be challenging for young people is that we typically need our staff to have a driving licence, because our sites are often a very long way from public transport. GIS is Geographical Information Systems. It's a form of mapping where you use you can use Ordnance Survey mapping and then put layers over the top of it to make up different images, and it's a very good way of collating spatial data and presenting it to people. It can go from fairly simple to really complicated. My team mostly use it at the simple end, but it's a very useful tool that we use within our work. But equally, we wouldn't be expecting school leavers to come with GIS skills. That's something that we would teach and make sure that they had appropriate training in how to use. To be honest, one of the key things that we need in our young people is enthusiasm and a willingness to have a go at stuff. And we can teach them all the technical things. What I really need is enthusiastic people who are just keen to muck in. There's been bits of mention of lab skills. The picture up the right-hand side there is of me and a colleague doing a field titration in Poland. So we were looking for the alkalinity of our particular samples there. So we do get to do some interesting chemistry as well. And there's other opportunities that would be available to school leavers within the wider RSK group as well. This is just specifically the sort of work that my team does. So that gives you a sort of quick canter through what we get up to. I'm very happy to answer questions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. And this is because whenever we were chatting, a couple of weeks ago, it's a case of, having that enthusiasm, that resilience, the ability to learn, as you go. That is really beneficial, for that. So it's really great to hear from an employer, about the kind of skills that our young people need. And then it kind of helps us reflect on what we're offering, within our own classrooms. Are we providing our young people with the opportunities for, outdoor working? Are we giving them the opportunity to use their IT skills and so on? And it really is, it's just lovely to hear. And it's something that's a bit different as well, because a lot of the time people think, oh, a scientist wears a white coat and they're in a lab, but this isn't in a lab. This is outside doing lots of all of this really cool stuff. Obviously, you will be in a lab at some point, but
more likely to wear a high-vis jacket, to be honest.
Yeah, and once again, and I think for a lot of young people, they wouldn't necessarily think about science like that. So once again, it's about trying to overcome that kind of unconscious bias, I suppose, isn't it? Whenever it comes to thinking about science and careers in science as well. So thank you so much. And once again, if you have any questions, please do. Oh, we've got another Mrs. Hamilton. Oh my goodness, I thought one of me was bad enough. Mrs. Hamilton, do you or your group offer work placements to young people in secondary schools, Catherine?
That's a very good question. And to be quite honest, at the moment, I don't know. Because the company is very broad in terms of what we offer, there may well be these opportunities in parts of the business beyond the section I work in. I think it's something I would like to investigate further, because I think there would be some really good opportunities for taking on sort of 17, 18-year-olds at some of our sort of starting grades, to give them a taste for the kind of work that we get up to, and see if that's something they're interested in pursuing. Because they could, there is no reason why an enthusiastic 17 or 18-year-old couldn't do a lot of the work that we do. It's not something you need a degree for. All you need is that enthusiasm and the willingness to muck in. So it's something I am very keen to follow up, but I'm afraid at the moment I don't actually know the answer.
Well, at least once again, and this is the lovely thing about this kind of particular session, because you can start asking those questions and, and get the ideas out there. And then you kind of think about, right, okay, so who do we need to talk to next? And once again, it's about, if we're talking to the young people in schools, about, oh, you could do this, you could do this. It would be fantastic if we could get them out into the field. It's great having people come into school and talk to young people, but at the same time, getting them out into the field, getting an opportunity, to go into a working lab to see how that works is great. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mrs. Hamilton. Yes, a lot of enthusiastic pupils for looking for these type of placements. Yeah, exactly, because they want to know what it's like, what the workplace is like. Klaus is asking, Catherine, just before I scoot on to the next wee bit, what are the current employment prospects in your area of work?
Because most of the work that we do is for renewable energy projects, it's absolutely booming. I'm currently rushed off my feet with tenders. So I would say excellent and growing.
Yeah, and there we go. So another growth industry. And once again, it might not necessarily be something that our young people might have thought of. So can we point them in the direction of something a wee bit different? So hopefully, and thank you. There you go. Wes is very happy with that as well. Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing with us. Now, like I said, unfortunately, poor Sarah had a family emergency and just not able to join us. But Sarah Smith is the healthcare science lead for the Scottish Government. And I've worked alongside Sarah this session, sharing ideas in and around lab skills, how we can get more young people into healthcare sciences and into essentially working for the NHS. It is one of the biggest employers within the UK and of course in Scotland. Now there are so many different disciplines, so many different aspects to healthcare science. And whenever you talk to young people about, you know, working for the NHS, working in the hospital, they do tend to go for the more traditional, oh, you have to be a doctor, oh, you have to do this, and they tend to go down the more traditional route. But there's so much more, you know, involved within that. So within the healthcare science in Scotland, you know, you've got your geneticists looking at your genomics, your data scientists, and then that's before you even get into the biochemistry, genetics, reproductive immunology, and so on. The physical sciences, the biomechanical engineering, you know, we've got the Imaging Centre of Excellence, you know, throughout the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. And I know saw that Annie McRobbie's on the call as well. We managed to do a wee enthuse Insight partnership visit and got to spend a day there seeing, you know, a lot of this in action. And there's so many people behind the scenes making clinical decisions that what the patient sees is the doctor. They don't see the range of technicians and scientists and radiographers and all the rest of it, you know, working in the background. And that was just from a one-day placement as well. And, you know, I'm sure all of us have experienced a visit to the GP or going into hospital for whatever reason. And it's not just, and it always strikes me, it's not just the doctor, it's the where's the blood going to, who's interpreting what's going on with my x-rays or my CT scans and all of this type of thing as well. And as well as having your GP surgeries where you would attend the hospitals, there's lots of labs, community you know, centres and things like that that do a lot of this work, and it's about diagnosing and monitoring patient diseases. It might not be patient facing, but there's lots of opportunities for young people to work within healthcare to provide that kind of service, but do it in a slightly different way that doesn't necessarily involve being a doctor or being a dentist as well. So lots of that. So there's, once again, lots of clinical research required as well. There's lots of small, and from that partnership that we did a couple of years ago now, once again, there's lots of small startup companies, you know, that are kind of starting, who need, you know, the entry-level technicians who can do the repetitive processes, who can make up the solutions, who can do the basic microbiology and all of this. And this is what the industry is looking for, not necessarily graduates, you know, coming out with your, you know, your honours degree in biochemistry or genetics, microbiology. It could well be it's looking for those young people with the skills. So whenever we think about laboratory medicine, then, so what happens once that blood has been taken? What then happens to that? What happens to the cheek swabs and all of this type of thing? And there's, once again, loads and loads of scope within this for young people. Blood transfusion, hematology, immunology, and even whenever you get then down into the cell science part of it, you can see microbiology has been mentioned quite a lot.
Apologies, everybody. I think we've lost Jane for a bit. I think, has everybody else lost sound? Yep. I think Jane's Wi-Fi is cut out.
Yeah, I think you're right. We lost it temporarily there.
Then she normally comes back on after a minute or so. Any thoughts while we're waiting for Jane to come back on? Any thoughts about some of these? In fact, just immediately before this call, I was on a call with NHS Scotland, who are very, very keen to engage with schools and with the whole range of allied health professionals, as Jane was talking about. Is that something people have got on their radar? The other thing as well is that we had a really interesting meeting with Skills Development Scotland this morning, and one of the things that was clear from the 16 Plus Data Hub was that in terms of STEM jobs, the health sector is almost one of the biggest employers in terms of STEM pathways, you know, so loads and loads of exciting opportunities. Mrs. Hamilton, do you want to come in and tell us about NHS 5 and some of the work going on there?
Yeah, I've done a wee bit of work. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
It's Mig Braid at NHS 5. It used to be face-to-face. It went on to Teams this year, but we've probably had about 20 to 30 of our young people go onto these Teams calls, and I think we had this year 80% of them ended up applying and getting into university for allied health professions. So it's just really good because it sort of broadens their horizons to what's out there. And for quite a few of our so it's 5th and 6th year it's targeted at, but that was through the DYW network in Fife.
That sounds fabulous. So did they go into the Teams call with allied health professionals and ask questions and interact with them and so on?
Yeah, so this year it was the first year that it was on Teams, and they had students from Dundee University, nursing, midwifery, and they had some physiotherapists, I think, on this year as well. So it used to be that they would go to the hospitals, so like Queen Margaret or the Vic, and they would have some input, but this year they got the students talking to them about what do they need to do to apply, what does a sort of year look like for them as students. So it seems to work really well, certainly for our young people.
That's fabulous. We'll take that to discussions, Mrs. Hamilton, you know, with NHS and stuff. So it's really great to hear about a model that's working well for you and about the number of percentage of learners that have been onto those pathways. That's incredible.
Can I butt in for a second since I see my name on the screen here? Mrs. Hamilton, sorry, I don't know your first name, but what's the school, please? I'm really interested in that.
Woods Mill High School in Dunfermline.
Great. Because we are planning to offer something similar nationally on DYW Live in collaboration with Borders. So that sounds exciting, you know, to hear the impact on young people, just as sort of a fairly simple input, if I may say so, may have, you know, on future employment. It sounds really, really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, one of my pupils said she didn't know if she wanted to do teaching or she wanted to go on to do nursing, and she came out from that and she said, no, it's definitely nursing that I want to do. And she's started volunteering with the NHS as well, because they showed them how to get into the volunteering opportunities. So I think it works well as well for some of the young people who know they want to do medicine. You know, they have had some doors opened as well. And it's what they've really lacked in the last couple of years. I know I was asking about work placements, but it is about getting young people into the world of work to see what it's all about before they have to make their final decisions. So, but yeah, it's Mig Braid who organised it. But if you drop me an email, I can send you on details.
Could I put my email in the chat and you just drop me a quick note? Sorry for that.
No, that's fine.
Sorry, a big chance here, Mr. Meyer.
Thanks very much. Magic. Thank you.
Jane, we're just covering back over to you. You were in
That's fine. Thank you so much. I know I'm not even quite sure where I got up to, but anyway, my apologies, folks. Someone must be playing Fortnite in our house. So thank you to the other Mrs. Hamilton as well. That's awesome for jumping in. That's fantastic. We're just talking about in and around opportunities within the NHS, within healthcare science as well. So we have admin opportunities. We also have biomedical support workers, assistants, practitioners. And once again, there are so many different facets of this, and letting the young people see that there is more to, you know, a career in healthcare than the traditional, you know, doctor, you know, dentist and so on, that there's lots of different ways in which to get into this career. And it mentioned as well how Annie McRobbie and I had been on the Insight placement at the Imaging Centre of Excellence. And these are the people that we were able to kind of connect with and have a chat with and get a real feel for what goes on behind the scenes in hospitals and so on. And like I said as well, you know, whenever you yourself go in, you know, for you know, treatment or get a blood test and things like that, these are all the people's behind the scenes that are actually dealing with you and your case. And so, and whenever Sarah and I were talking about this before, like, she's so passionate about lab skills. I'm absolutely gutted that she's not here, because she's so passionate about young people, so passionate about getting young people into work within the healthcare science. And she fully appreciates that not every young person is going to follow a path that takes them from school into university and then into the workplace. So she's so fully aware of the importance of skills. And Klaus has touched on this as well, the idea that we need to make sure we have young people people who are good communicators, who can work as part of a team. They have the basic lab skills. They know how to work in a lab, go in and get their lab coat on. They know how to do basic risk assessment. You know, all these things, and all I could think of each time was, that's what we do in lab skills. We've done that, we've done that. So we're creating a workforce essentially in school that can go out and go into an interview and talk about health and safety and communicate what they've been doing within that and manage their time. Although sometimes with the teenagers I worked with, their time management was a wee bit ropey. Once they got into class, they were fine. But it's a case of, why should we, you know, do things like this in school? And it's this, we give our learners an opportunity to think about the different industries within life sciences. So, and like I said earlier, whenever we teach science, it's such a fantastic opportunity for us to share the various pathways that are available, what a career in science could take you into, and whether that's in lab skills, you know, whenever they're doing Unit 1, whether it's within the BGE, if you're doing inserts from My World of Work, if you're connecting with STEM ambassadors, anything like that. We want to give our young people opportunities to speak with employers directly, you know, and give them a chance. Well, what are you looking for? But also for employers to meet the young people and to come in and see what it's like in school just now, you know, because everyone has the kind of preconception about, well, this is what school was like whenever I was at school. It has changed so much, and it's that kind of mutual communication, you know, being able to share the practice in school and industry together. We want to be able to give our young people a good grounding in basic lab skills. I remember whenever I worked at Cali Uni, remember chatting with the technicians who were there. Absolutely brilliant group of staff. I felt really privileged to work with them. But they would always comment about how undergrads would come in, you know, straight from school, you know, really, really bright kids, advanced tires coming out of their ears and all the rest of it, but they couldn't do serial dilution or make up a solution or use an autopipette. So once again, it's these practical skills, you know, how can you use an autopipette, you know, and we've all been there whenever we've seen them trying to, you know, use the electrophoresis tank and try and get that wee tiny bit of liquid in. So are we given the opportunities to practice these types of skills? Knowledge of the essentials, health and safety. Once again, we're going to go back to your Health and Safety at Work Act, the Electricity at Work Act, all of this type of thing all kind of happens whenever we deliver the likes of lab skills or scientific technologies. If we're looking at practical electronics, we're giving them the actual links to industry whenever we do that, and we're kind of exposing them. And of course, the core skills. But I know that whenever this first start off in lab skills, whatever, they are a wee bit rough around the edges, but I can guarantee you that by Christmas, they know they are fantastic. They know what it means, you know, to manage their time effectively. They can work with other people that they might not necessarily have worked with before. So once again, we're equipping them for the world of work in that particular context. Now, Sarah did a lot of work within NHS Lothian and was involved in developing Outcome 1, you know, for the careers using lab science. And once we're trying to encourage our young people to kind of have a look at the career pathway and that of others. Well, how did other people end up in that particular place? What they also did within this, they asked students to apply for a particular role, and they went through the paperwork with them. This is how you fill out this type of application, and this is what you would do in an interview, and did practice interviews, all of this. These are all fantastic bits of practice that we could potentially then drop down. Is there a particular partner within your school that you might be able to work with, you know, who could help with these particular characteristics? Because we know that young people have to do a CV as part of lab skills. So why not expand on that and have a look at interview technique and so on as well? They interviewed candidates and they got a row if they were late, you know, and they got proper interview feedback, you know, and some of them, like we know, some of them engaged, some of the young people engaged brilliantly with it, but some of them kind of were a bit, oh, really? But they got their feedback, and then it made a big difference to them being able to have exposure to that kind of process. One thing she said as well, that whenever they started getting applications in and if they saw that a young person had completed lab skills or an MPA went in a particular science field, they were able to demonstrate these practical activities, you know, and they were a lot more confident in the lab. They were a lot more confident in their own ability and the skills, and they were able to give some really good examples, because sometimes within recruitment within scientific industries, and I think there's a few colleagues on the call who will probably be able to help out with this, where you're asked to demonstrate particular techniques as well. So, and some students having done lab skills were then able to go on and collect a professional qualification or else go into an HNC in applied science as well. So like I said, it was a stop tour. I do apologise that the internet cut out. I'll be having a word with the teenager later on about that. But now it's time just to kind of open it up to yourselves, you know, because there's been lots of information through that, and I appreciate there's a wee bit of discussion there as well. Is there anything else you'd like to know? You know, what are your initial thoughts? You know, was it useful? You know, this is the type of thing that we need to know. Are there any thoughts or reflections that you would like to share with us just now? Just before I ask you to turn on your mics and all this type of stuff, there is an evaluation as well. So we've got the, I'll just pop the link and what have you into the chat in just a minute, or else you can take a wee snapshot of the QR code on your phone and you can access the evaluation for us, because once again, these sessions are running on the back of information that we've got from you guys, and moving forward we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the practitioners, so we'd really like to be able to do that. Our next session is going to be at the end of May, so Tuesday the 24th at 4:15, and we're going to look at supporting ASN within the sciences. And this has come from, once again, from the chat that we've received from your good selves about how, you know, how can we support young people with additional support needs, you know, because I have been the teacher of a National 4 science class with 17 young people in it, and 14 of them needed reader and scribes for assessments and so on. So it's quite challenging. And once again, we want to be able to share practice and give and signpost, you know, and direct you to resources that might be useful, but also give an opportunity for discussion on how we can best support our young people through that. And before we open it up, just to let you know, the next round of STEM grants has gone live. The deadline for applications is the 11th of May. Once again, we've got another wee QR code there. Maybe Ian or Margaret might be able to pop the link into the chat too for you. There is £400,000 available. £200,000 of that has been ring fenced for maths and numeracy, but there's £200,000 available. It's about collaboration, it's about your professional learning, and there are 2 different funding streams. And for more information, if you just use the QR codes there as well. And finally, from me, just to let you know, very, very excited. Lots of you will be aware of the STEM Nation Award pilot that started back in 2019. We're absolutely delighted to let you know that the STEM Nation Award will be getting rolled out, and we're going to be hosting information sessions in May and June, so you can have all your questions answered and find out absolutely everything you could ever want to know about the STEM Nation Award programme. So delighted you're able to join us. Once again, we would love to hear from you, so please fill out the evaluation. If anyone has any thoughts they would like to share, please do unmute yourself, pop your camera on and let us know. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing that, hopefully. Okay. Let's see. Hi there.
Hi, Jane. My name's...
How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. My name's Sandeep. I work at Banff Academy in the northeast of Scotland. I have a couple of questions around NPAs and Skills for Work courses. Can you share any good practice with promoting these courses? A lot of our kids, when we have offered NPAs, have not taken them. They'd rather pick the national qualifications. Have you come across any good practice elsewhere which we can use to promote these courses?
I'll gladly talk about this with you. I can share the links to our previous sessions, but once again, what I found was, in my own experience, is a lot of this is about winning over hearts and minds of the pupils and the parents. You know, and once again, it comes back to what Donnie was talking about within the SCQF. If the parents can see that this qualification is on a par with this one, that really, really helps. So using the SCQF framework, I delivered lab skills, so Bannockburn High School, and part of that was, once again, to try and raise attainment, make sure that young people were in at an appropriate level, so everyone could, you know, achieve, you know, within, you know, their ability. And once again, there's a lot of work done behind the scenes, speaking to pupil support, speaking to deputies, speaking to parents, and speaking to the staff as well within the department too, so they could see the benefits. So absolutely everybody, you know, was on board. We had that shared vision, that shared aim, and so everybody was able to kind of sell it exactly the same way. And then at parents' evenings, we also did option evenings as well, where we were able to specifically talk to parents. This is what this course is about. This is what it's going to be really beneficial. So I'll email you through the links as well to the previous sessions, because we've had other practitioners coming on and have a chat about what they did at their school and how they were able to deliver it as well. So that would probably be really useful for you as well. But I'll email that through to you. Thanks. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there was one more thing. What's your experience been like with the assessment around the course? A lot of the times I'm feeling the pupils who are wanting to access these type of courses may struggle with the demand of assessment.
With the likes of lab skills and the MPA, because it's continuous assessment throughout the year, so they do take that kind of portfolio approach where they do little bits and it's assessed in little bits and then it's assessed. So not having the end of year exam was actually a huge selling point for a lot of the young people and the parents that I worked with. And once again, it's this idea that they're being assessed on their practical skills, on their ability to carry something out safely, collect results, and then present those results, so they can still have access to the instructions and all of this type of thing. And it's all about equipping them with the skills that they need.
Are you speaking very much about the skills for work lab?
So for skills for work lab skills with the level 6 MPA.
With the NPAs being very much, you know, they're units of national chemistry or national biology. Have you had any experience with assessing those courses in a portfolio approach or similar?
Well, I've worked with the level 6 scientific technologies. There are the MPA courses like your science and health, your science and technology, those ones where they do the individual units. I haven't delivered those personally, but I'll be able to put you in contact with some people who are delivering them just now, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Jane.
No worries at all. That's absolutely fine.
Could I possibly butt in again?
Please do, Klaus. Absolutely.
Sorry. Mr. Barpool, sorry, I didn't get this right, but if you want to come back on. Sorry, my apologies. Am I right in saying you work at Banff Academy?
Yeah.
Do you want to share with the group a little bit about how your school is arranging the senior phase now around, because I believe you are operating quite an innovative way of dealing with that, or are you not happy to speak about it?
I speak about it if you wish, Klaus. It is very different. It's mostly the 5th and 6th year senior phase where they have the afternoons available to them to choose what they want to do. So it could be anything from work experience to study to accessing different courses, which is very different. Yes, I guess. So we've been doing this just this past year, really, with the previous lockdowns not really being conducive to this. So we're still early days, Klaus. We're hoping to have a an event on the 8th of June where we'll be able to share more of this with other people. So still early days in that.
But it's a brilliant concept. I've heard about it on my travels, so I'm more than happy to be invited. Please feel free to. I think the reason I wanted you to speak about it is because I think that could be a way around some of the issues, you know, in future, and trying to offer qualifications. If you free up time and allow personal choice. I'm sorry that doesn't help you with your qualifications question, but I've posted it. I'm just posting in the chat. Newbattle Community High School is a good school. They offer a lot of different qualifications. So maybe that's a great bunch of people down there.
Okay.
So
I'll get the school to contact you about coming up for a visit.
Yeah, that would be, or even if it's an online, whatever, I would be delighted to actually learn more about it. Thank you very much for sharing that. Really great.
Thank you.
Bob.
Awesome. Okay, folks, does anyone else have any other questions or any reflections on the session? You're more than welcome to turn your mic on and your camera as well, so you can see your nice smiley face. Oh, and there's the boss with his smiley face.
And I suppose just to say, you know, we've had a really positive series of webinars looking at Skills for Work courses. I just responded to one of the questions in the chat about Skills for Work and Lab Science. We also had a really great session about National Progression Awards and Foundation Apprenticeships. So just to let people know, we're just preparing some links to go out, and we hope to get them out this week so you can watch back and see those recordings or those sessions. I'm sure you'll get a lot from them.
Ian, carrot button again, and this is definitely.
You're always doing this, Klaus.
It's only because I gave him 7.5 minutes. That's it.
I've actually officially still got 2.5 minutes.
You do indeed, Klaus. You do.
Just to see, I'm just off a call with the Foundation Apprenticeship Network, and they looked at the challenges around the qualifications, right? And if you want to read a bit about how important the support is and the communication between the providers and the schools on the success of the assessments, that's important. So I've just high-level messages. There are real challenges around it. I'm trying to respond to Mr. Upward as well. There are real challenges around some of the qualifications because they're actually quite meaty. They may not be exceedingly more difficult than something else, but quite time-consuming in the stuff. So guidance, support of the young people, and the collaboration and commitment between providers is actually key to cracking some of this. So I'm just saying this is a bit of a health warning, because just offering an MPA, for example, without really the proper support may not yield a bit, and that's what I was hearing from Banff there. So a little bit on that. Anyway, sorry. And now I'm saying nothing else. I'm kayaking off into the sunset here.
Thank you, Klaus. Okay, folks, well, I do appreciate that we have gone a wee bit over our time, but that's okay. It was all good chat. So thank you so much. Like I said, I have put the evaluation into the chat. It would be great if you could fill that out. And thank you for joining us again. And hopefully we'll see you in May at our supporting ASN within the sciences. So thank you to Klaus and to Donnie and to Catherine and to all of you guys for joining us as well. So have a lovely evening, everybody.